You don't have to put your money in prison for decades and rely upon someone else to achieve the financial abundance that you deserve today. The banking system, much like the heart and lung machine, the banking system pumps the money to where it's needed the most. And then at some point, it flows through your hands and mine, right? But where does it all end up? Most people don't even recognize that there is a financial play, let alone who the characters are. And if you think about this in your own life, there are four characters in the financial play. The first character is Now, most people, and this is such a fundamental truth, that most people believe they need someone else to take care of their money. That's what we've been conditioned to believe. And most people believe that it's necessary to risk their money in order to grow it. And most people know next to nothing about the process of banking and its importance to their lives and to their well-being. Now, here's a fundamental truth. The difference between you getting stressed or staying relaxed financially is who controls the banking function in your life. Someone must perform that function as it relates to your needs. Truth number two is that you don't have to put your money in prison for decades and rely upon someone else to achieve the financial abundance that you deserve today. And truth number three is that you don't have to be rich to become your own banker. We have clients that are depositing as little as $100 a month into their policies or system of policies for their kids, their grandkids, their great grandkids. We have clients that are putting in multi-six figures per month, whether it's for their themselves as business owners, key people in their business, joint venture partners in real estate, spouses. You don't have to be rich to do this. You're going to need the use of money for the rest of your lifetime. And regardless of what's going on in the economy, regardless of what's going on in the markets, regardless of what's going on in real estate, someone must perform this function of banking as it relates to your needs, because the process of banking never stops. It just carries on no matter what. So the question you need to ask yourself is, who is the banker in your life today? Now, who is this process for? Becoming your own banker, the infinite banking concept for Canadians. Who is this for? It's for you. We are all familiar with the process of banking. It's part of our everyday lives. The way that things are happening for you in your life right now is that all of the transactions that you're accustomed to on a daily basis, just think about it. You fill up your car with fuel, you buy groceries at the grocery store, you pay your utilities, you pay your employees, you spend money on entertainment and dining out and all of these things that you need financial resources for. It all involves a permanent transfer of money away from you because someone else is performing this function in your life. The way that this began, where this concept was born, R. Nelson Nash found himself in a very difficult financial situation in the early 1980s when inflation peaked, interest rates skyrocketed. If you were a prime customer of the bank, you were offered an interest rate of 21.5%. I haven't met anybody who's prime. It's always prime plus. And Nelson found himself in a situation where he owed $500,000 in mortgage debt because he was quite active in the area of real estate investment. Now, what's interesting is that even to this day, there are so many gurus who talk about how to use leverage for the purposes of acquiring and amassing a real estate portfolio. What Nelson thought at the time was that, gosh, I understand that people are saying to me, Nelson, why don't you just sell the real estate? If you are $500,000 in debt and you're paying a lot more in interest than you had planned for, just sell the real estate. And Nelson thought to himself, what fool is going to buy this real estate from me if they have to borrow money from the commercial banks at such high rates? He had a choice at that time. Him and his joint venture partner had a decision to make. Do we work our way through this, or do we file an assignment in bankruptcy, throw in the towel, and start fresh? Well, Nelson's joint venture partner did just that. Nelson's joint venture partner filed an assignment in bankruptcy. Now, Nelson decided that he was going to work his way through it. So he recognized the problem, that's for sure. It kept him up many, many late nights, very little sleep, a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. What he didn't realize is that the solution to the problem was right there in front of him. He had already put together a system of dividend paying participating whole life insurance policies. He had already accumulated cash value. He had already accumulated loan amounts that were accessible directly from the life insurance companies between 6 to 8% interest, where he could pay off the snakes and dragons, as he referred them to, at more than 21.5%. So he made a decision in that moment to work his way through it. It took him 13 years to get rid of the snakes and dragons. That's how this concept was born. He identified the solution to the problem. And the solution was to take control of the banking function as it relates to your needs. And that's what gave birth to the infinite banking concept. And after that 13-year period, Nelson and his wife, Mary, did not see a commercial bank for anything other than the convenience of debit for the rest of his lifetime, all the way through to March of 2019. They had no mortgages in the family, no loans from commercial banks in the family. Everything flowed through the family banking system of policies. Now, this question is obvious. Everybody needs a heart. And Nelson experienced something that you may know someone in your life who's gone through something similar. Nelson had to undergo quadruple bypass surgery many years ago. And when he was under anesthetic and on the operating table, the only thing keeping him alive was a heart and lung machine. So Nelson's heart was actually removed from his chest cavity. They replumbed it in 4 different places and put that heart back inside his chest cavity. And while this surgery was going on, obviously Nelson wasn't conscious. He said, I was kept alive, but I wasn't really truly living. I was just existing. It was the heart and lung machine that was keeping me alive. And I want you to think about this as it relates to who's controlling the banking function as it relates to your needs. Someone else is performing that function for you. The reason Nelson utilized his story in his talks is that he wanted people to know that in order for you to change, you must take control. And thank goodness he survived that surgical procedure and went on to live for many, many more years and creating many more happy memories with his growing family and with his wife, Mary, of 63 years. And I want you to know that what Nelson often said to us was that banking is the most important business in the world. Without it, everything comes to a grinding halt financially. And the banking system, much like the heart and lung machine, the banking system pumps the money to where it's needed the most. And then at some point, it flows through your hands and mine, right? But where does it all end up? So think about all the money that flows through your hands and mine. It all ends up right back in the banking system. The real issue here is how much of that function do you control as it relates to your needs? Now, I want you to know that there's only one pool of money in the world. It's inconsequential that there are many different currencies, that there are many different financial institutions, deposit-taking institutions, et cetera, that manage this pool. There's only one pool of money on the planet. And what Nelson saw was that he was pumping money into the pool the wrong way. He had to go through the bankers, the toll takers, the gatekeepers, who were all making money off of him and abusing him. Has that ever happened to you? We talk to people every single day who tell us that they've had some poor experience, stressful experience, high pressure experience dealing with a banker. when they needed access to money, and in some cases, their own money. It doesn't have to be that way. You're going to learn how to take back control so that you don't have to rely upon someone else to create the financial abundance that you deserve today. And what Nelson realized is that he needed to crank up very large life insurance premiums inside of dividend paying, participating whole life insurance contracts. He knew that he could not achieve that overnight. It had to be achieved incrementally over a period of time. And everyone thought that he was nuts, including his spouse, Mary. What's interesting is that when people understand this process and they embrace it, most people get very ambitious. They want to be very aggressive in the implementation of this process in their lives. And what I'm here to share with you is that this is not about getting rich quick. This is about accumulating wealth for sure. And it has to be done incrementally and gradually. I'm 14 years into my journey with this process. And before I began implementing this in my own life, I was doing everything that mainstream was telling me to do financially. So how was it that I ended up in the situation that I was in if I was doing what I believed was right because that's what mainstream was telling me to do? If the minority of people on planet Earth are accumulating and controlling wealth, then why is it that we continue to do what the minority do financially? It makes absolutely no sense. What most people do not understand is the four characters in the financial play. And Nelson described this extremely well in the book titled Becoming Your Own Banker. He goes on to describe that most people don't even recognize that there is a financial play, let alone who the characters are. And if you think about this in your own life, there are four characters in the financial play. The first character is the depositor. Now, all of you who are in attendance are depositors. You earn income. That income flows in the form of T4 income, interest income, dividend income. You're earning income from some source. Now, where does that income end up? It ends up being deposited onto the books of someone else's bank. I say that again, someone else's bank. Now, the second character in the play is the borrower. This character is the most important of the four because without this character, nothing else happens. Now, we are all borrowers, even when we pay cash for things. So some of you on today's bootcamp might be the type of person who has a distaste for debt, who prefers to save everything they need to complete a purchase of whatever it is that they want to buy. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just important to understand that you're still working with borrowed money because you're either paying interest to someone else to access their pile of capital, or you're permanently giving up the opportunity that your own money could have earned in interest otherwise. The borrower is the most important of the four characters in the financial play. Now, for most of you, if not all of you on today's bootcamp, you're only two of the four characters in the financial play. The third character is the banker. The banker is the individual who decides who gets access to the pool of capital and what the criteria is to gain access in terms of credit worthiness, income verification, all of these steps that you're all accustomed to having to go through in order to gain access to the money pool. The fourth character in the financial play is the bank owner. The bank owner is the stockholder of the bank. The stockholder has an expectation of participating in profit. And so for most of you, if not all of you, you are the depositor and the borrower. You're not the banker and you're not the bank owner. But we're going to teach you how to become all four characters in the financial play, just like we have. And you're going to learn exactly how to do that today. Now, you may have heard the golden rule. The golden rule is those who have the gold make all the rules. And what most people do is they abdicate their responsibility and most importantly, the opportunity as it pertains to the banking function in their life, because they're depending on someone else to perform that job. And that character in the play is the one who's making most of the money, and rightly so, because of the golden rule. The person on the street in Canada today totally understands the subject so poorly that they're doing the equivalent of living off of a heart and lung machine. And what I want to talk to you about, what my teammates want to talk to you about, is how to create a system in which you control everything about the banking function as it relates to your needs. Now, this particular book changed everything for me. This is my original copy. It's been with me for a very, very long time. It's laminated. It's got copious notes of all the things that Nelson taught me throughout the years and how he expanded on the wisdom that he shared. This is a 92-page read, and this book will change your life. I promise you that it will. And this figure of 470,000 is now north of 500,000. And there's a reason why this book has sold more than 500,000 copies, because it works. Now, in our organization at Ascendant, the way that we operate is that we have an expectation that anyone that we find a basis to work with has to read the book. And there's a reason for that. This book is going to be with you, just like this one's been with me since my journey began. This book will be with you for your entire journey as well. And your advisor is going to be working with you and expanding on what Nelson shared in the book, because the more that you see inside this book, the more you will see you didn't see. There's always something new to learn. We are continually expanding our knowledge and awareness of the process because we're learning from people who began their journeys before we did. And so we want you to have this book. We want you to read it, and your advisor is going to have an expectation that that has happened in order for you to establish a basis to work together. Getting your hands on a copy, we've got, I think, 6 cases of Nelson's book on the way. The Nelson Nash Institute, who prints copies of Becoming Your Own Banker and distributes them all over the world, the printer actually that they contracted to do that work for so many years, that printer sadly went out of business. And so they've resourced a new supplier, and we've got cases. There's north of, I think, 80 plus copies in a case. So we've got several cases on the way. And so if you do order a copy, getting it couriered to you is going to take just a little bit longer than normal, but we'll make sure that we get that into your hands. Get a copy, you'll be glad you did. In fact, buy one for someone who you think would benefit from the gift of this knowledge as well.